Hello and good evening. Welcome to yet another edition of the Multimillionaire Forum, a forum that has been around for the last 3 years. And every forum we try and bring you yet another interesting, yet another curated, and yet another very, very inspiring idea where we can multiply your money, where you can create wealth, where you can accumulate from 1 to 10 and from 10 to 20 and from 20 to 100. That's the whole idea. So today I'm going to talk about one particular fund. And let me just quickly share my screen and show you something very interesting about this fund. This fund's performance per se. Let me just tell you that if you started a very simple sort of an SIP in this kind of a fund, what would have happened over the last 3 years, just about last 3 years, not a very long-term period, not a very detailed sort of an analysis, but a very, very simple sort of a thing. Here it is on your screen. If you had just invested 10,000 rupees monthly SIP, which I know you all do, and there is so much more. In fact, we do 40,000, 50,000, 1 lakh of SIPs every month. But here you see 10,000 last 3 years has become 4.5 lakhs, just like that. So what's your investment? 3,60,000. You made a profit of 4.5 lakhs. Basically, your value is 4.5 lakhs, sorry. So you made a profit of almost close to 1 lakh of rupees. This fund, yet something interesting about this fund, look at this fund's performance, for example, on a 5-year basis, 16%. By far it's beaten inflation, by far it's beaten the GDP growth, by far it's a great fund to reckon with. 10 years return is at about 10% and 7-year return at about 18%. You can have a look at this thing directly on Value Research. It's open for you, it's public data, public forum. Having said that, DSP, Natural Resources and New Energy Fund. And today, to talk more about this fund and with me, I'm going to set up this little interview, bringing you this Multimillionaire Forum. Today, joining me is going to be Rohit and Ayush, who are co-fund managers of this fund from DSP Mutual Fund. They've been managing this fund. Ayush has been managing this fund for the last couple of years. Rohit has been here for almost a decade. He joined DSP way back in 2005, and he's been managing a multitude of funds. A very popular fund, DSP Tiger Fund. I'm sure a lot of you remember we used to invest a lot of money in Tiger Fund. It was an infrastructure theme-based fund. We used to do a lot of that investment earlier. And now, of course, here we're bringing you a new idea, which is the Natural Resources Fund. So welcome, Rohit. Welcome, Ayush. My pleasure to welcome you to this Multimillionaire Forum. You can just say hello to all our audience.
Hello, everyone. Nice to have you all here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you. Hello.
Yes, hi. Wonderful. Now, what we are going to do is we will just straight away dive in over the next 30 to 40 minutes. We are going to bring you some key salient features and why this is a very, very interesting idea. Just to talk about natural resources. What is natural resources? And a lot of you may be, in this field related to some scientific field or some engineering field or some sort of a field where you're directly or indirectly connected with infrastructure and the likes of resources. Resources are depleting over a period of time. We are seeing such severe climate impact, so much so that the Biden government is now going to come back and they have committed as much as $3 trillion for an investment over the next few years. By 2030, Biden government is also made an announcement that they will try and go carbon neutral, which is to say that they will have net zero emissions. How is all this possible if we do not have renewable energy and if we do not have new technologies and new methods of using the resources that we have? Natural resources, obviously, are very, very, very limited, and there is no manufacturing of these natural resources. We are only mining things like aluminum and zinc, and these things come out from the earth. But there is an absolute limitation to how much you can do, which is why there comes a situation where we feel that natural resources, because it's a limited commodity, new energy or renewable energy, let's put it in another way, or sustainable energy. Sustainable is quite a buzzword that we hear everywhere. Even companies have to become, even fund managers are today becoming conscious of the fact that if the company is compliant towards green energy, then there is a better possibility of the fund manager investing in such companies. Even that's coming up pretty strongly all across, all around the world. So that's the case why we need to really look at this fund and why this particular fund, this particular theme, this particular area of investment is likely to make a lot of wealth for investors going forward. And there is no option but to go here. So I think demand, in my view, is going to be, I'm not an expert, but I think in my view, the demand is going to be automatic for the new energy and sustainable energy, whether it's a car or that you're talking about, or whether it's an application in an industry or a factory, or as simply said in our homes, where there are even technologies where you can have a little windmill outside your window powering the entire electricity in your house except the air conditioner and the heater. But think about that, that's a hell of a lot of power saving. These are new ways in which we will exist as we move along. We've learned a lot in the last year or so, year of 2020, the year of COVID. And going forward, I want to place my first question to Rohit and Ayush, your team. Why was this fund created? We know this is an 8-year-old fund. This fund also has some international exposure. But why was this fund created in the Indian market? And if you can tell all our investors and viewers, why invest in natural resources, and the ethos or the logic or the principle or the thinking process behind why we created this fund?
Thank you, Karthik. I think if you go back 7, 8 years, the whole thought and ideation of this fund was, can we have a differentiated approach to investors, whereby in India, what's happening, what is expected over the next few years, and globally, what themes can pan out. So commodities was one theme which we thought, over the next 4, 5 years could do well. The reasoning behind it was what's happening in China, what kind of growth China is going to witness or can witness. In India, what's happening. Typically, when you look at natural resources or commodity companies, right, they have huge amount of debts on their books, always. So when you look at a diversified fund, any of a diversified funds, the exposure of these type of companies as funds are usually at the lowest level always. At times as a fund manager, even I manage a diversified fund, right? For me, it's like a tactical approach. When should I buy a commodity company? I never think of it owning it over a 1, 2, 3, 5 year period always. So we thought, can we have a fund, which can invest in these kind of companies? And here, commodity doesn't mean I'm going to buy every commodity listed in the space. We have a thorough identification in terms of how do we identify stocks, what do we look in buying the stocks. So that it's a thorough process which we follow. So we thought this kind of an exposure is not available in diversified funds. Growth India and globally is expected to pick up. So this should be a good opportunity, as for us investor to maybe invest, maybe not even 10% of its overall, investments in equities, but a small part also could be a good option for them. So that's how it was, initiated and constructed. As far as the offshore part of the business is concerned, right? So we are talking about sustainable energy in terms of how do we see it today. In the last 2 or 3 years, the talk has become more. Everyone, from top to bottom is talking about what needs to happen, what's going on. In India, if you look at it, and any company, from across market cap, across segments, you really don't have pure players in this business, right? In sustainable energy, which I can say, okay, I have this company in my portfolio because they are doing this kind of work. Yes, you have various companies being doing this kind of work, but as a percentage of revenue, as a percentage of profit, it's minuscule. So you cannot call them really sustainable, right? On the other hand, BlackRock had a global fund, sustainable energy fund, which used to invest in these kind of businesses globally. And looking at their team, in terms of the kind of people managing those funds, like today, if you'll ask me my background, Ayush's background, we have done a graduation, done a maybe CEO, MBA, right? That's our background. These guys have done their education, they have worked in those sectors, right? In the businesses, industries for 15, 20 years, and now they're managing those money. So the kind of knowledge they have in the businesses is like on ground, on hand knowledge. So that gave us the comfort that today, if I'm giving my money to them, whom am I giving my money to?
Correct.
There were two parts to it. One, investment opportunity not available in India. And two, you have the confidence on the manager who's managing that part of your AUM. That's one. On the second part, which is the World Energy Fund of BlackRock. So I think this is the first time in the last 4 or 5 months we took exposure to that fund. So again, that fund invests in traditional energy companies globally, right?
Right.
If you are still now, if you have companies in India and they're performing well, might as well focus our energies. And Ayush and I understand that more, might as well focus our energy. We tried to do some analysis 6 months back. If crude goes up and down, or there's a volatility in oil, are domestic upstream oil companies or the BGR Energy Fund, who has a better correlation to these aspects? And then we realized, if I'm buying a pure upstream company today, or I'm buying a BGR Energy Fund, the correlation for the BGR Energy Fund was significantly higher. So if I am bullish on crude today, instead of I have an option of buying Indian listed companies who are upstream, or I have an option of buying the BGR Energy Fund. So we said let's
Right.
introduce that also in our portfolio for the first time, instead of having big weights in other Indian companies. So that's how we stand today in terms of both the global offshore funds and what was the whole thought behind initiating or launching this fund. Basically trying to give what's available in India and what's not available in India, and which we think the team should play out.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much.